How well received has the trailer been this weekend at CPAC with the whole gathering of conservatives here for the weekend?
Well, I think our trailer's been received very well, and I think our pamphlet that exposes homegrown jihadist activity in America has been received very well too. I think most Americans and most attendees of this CPAC event are quite unaware that inside the United States there are some 35 Islamic terrorist camps operating in the backyards of America. So I think coming to this event and putting people on notice, that is grassroots Americans from as far away as from California to as nearby as Washington, D.C., that inside America, a radical Pakistani cleric is actively buying up land, recruiting American Muslims to join his terrorist camps, and then training them in Islamic terrorist activity is something that most people at this conference and most people around America are completely unaware of. So coming to this event and being able to hand out our pamphlet on this matter and be able to show our trailer and hand out copies of our trailer of our upcoming documentary on this issue, I think it's been very successful. I'm very happy about it.
And so you are encouraged to finish out the full documentary. You had a lot of feedback from people who are wanting to see it, wanting you to go forward with the project.
I think everybody that has seen our documentary trailer so far has been alarmed, number one, very concerned, and it has raised questions in their mind about what is the full breadth of this story of terror camps inside the United States. And furthermore, what do we do about them now that we know that they are here? And this is something that is not going to be resolved until law enforcement is aware, until members of Congress are aware, even the FBI being fully aware of these terrorist camps, and that Americans throughout the country are aware of these terrorist camps. And I think once they are informed, then possibly members of Congress and maybe the White House can take the action that's necessary to shut these terrorist camps down. So I think they've been alarmed by what they see, and I do think they want us to finish this documentary and get it into the hands of the appropriate people who can actually do something about these camps.
Now, the president was here, he spoke on terrorism. There's been a number of events or gatherings that spoke on terrorism. But how well understood do you see, even in leadership levels or high levels among different leaders here, the level of understanding about homegrown terrorism, the specific threat of camps in neighborhoods in rural areas?
You know, I think all Americans should be greatly concerned that most of the media's attention, most of law enforcement's attention, most of members of Congress' attention, and including the White House attention has been about terrorism originating from overseas, from in the Middle East or from inside of Europe, and that there has not been enough attention to what's actually going on inside of our borders. And I think it's precisely that reason that there's not a lot of attention being brought to bear of what's happening in the United States that is allowing these terrorist camps to flourish, to actually grow. Sheikh Jelani, who is a radical Pakistani cleric who has been inside the United States since 1980 and has been setting up camps for the last quarter of a century, is going completely unopposed by law enforcement, either local law enforcement or federal law enforcement, in establishing these terror training camps. And in a training video that we obtained that Sheikh Jelani has produced to teach his soldiers of how to train into Islamic military warfare, very boldly comes out and says that he is establishing the most advanced Islamic warfare training camps that they can be a part of. And he's talking about establishing them right here in the United States. And he started with one, then it grew to two. Now it's ballooned up to possibly 35 terrorist communes inside of our borders. And we're not talking about terrorists who are occupying a small parcel of land, or people like Al-Qaeda renting an apartment and operating out of an apartment. We're talking about terrorists that actually have bought upwards of 25 acres, 45 acres, 70 acres, 150 acres, 300 acres of land. And in California, for instance, one of these terrorist compounds even had an airplane landing strip on it. And they have firing ranges on it. They have paramilitary guerrilla training sections on these compounds. And the thought that all of our focus is going to overseas and what's happening over there and whether they will import terrorists into our country to attack us, and being completely oblivious that they're already here, operating on large acres of land with all the terror training equipment they need, and no one doing anything about that. That is what should alarm Americans, and that's why we have this documentary. It's not just to alarm Americans, it's to inform them, and it's to make sure that there is a public outcry to do something about them, to get them to be shut down.